You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
Welcome into the Patriot Nation podcast. Your boy, Pat Lane, as always, here with my guy, Matt St. Jean. And today we have an incredibly special guest. He's like a son of the program. It's my guy, Keagan Steifel from over at NESN. We are so excited and lucky to have you back. Thank you for coming back, man. We appreciate it.
This somehow feels familiar and just totally upgraded from when I was hanging around these parts. Just the intro, I like a big ass smile on my face as soon as the intro started. I was like, wow, the production value is through the roof.
Well, moving up in the world.
Yeah, I'm working with a webcam inside the laptop, so not a great look for your boy, but I'm glad to talk some ball.
We're getting there. Listen, we love you for your looks and your knowledge, not your webcam. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
That sounds really inappropriate, but we're just gonna keep it moving. As always, this episode of the Patriot Nation podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, which is the exclusive wagering partner of CLNS Media Network. Download FanDuel at FanDuel.com/Boston. All right, let's get into this because Ezekiel Elliott is a Patriot, and Keagan. We're all excited about it, but I feel like you, as a Buckeyes fan, are even more excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, we right before we went live, we were talking about my love as a 14-year-old kid. The first college football game I ever watched was Ohio State versus Wisconsin. I believe it was 70-3. So I didn't stand a chance. I was an Ohio State fan from that day, and Zeke Elliott was the first guy that I was like, that's our guy. You know, I was all aboard the Heisman train his junior year. His game against Alabama in the playoff in 2014 is legendary. So I tweeted out, 14-year-old Keagan is thrilled. He loves this signing. He would have, if you told him back in the day, he would have lost his mind. 24-year-old Keagan's like, nice. You know, some goal line touches is nice.
Yeah. No, listen, I think that's the right way to feel about this. To me, it's not, Zeke is fine. He's a good player. He's a role player for the Patriots. He's a guy that they needed a stable back, a reliable back behind Ramondre Stevenson. They couldn't give Ramondre Stevenson 300 carries again. They couldn't do it. He fell apart at the end of the year. And so you needed a guy that could do that. Zeke is that guy, I believe. To be able to do that. And, and he's good at pass protection. He's very good at catching the ball out of the backfield. I mean, before last year, he had 4 straight years of 50+ catches. So he's a reliable receiver out of the backfield if you need him to be. He had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. And I think they said he had the highest conversion rate, or one of the top 3 highest conversion rates in the league inside the 5-yard line. So he's a guy that can punch the ball inside if you need him to. But again, it's not like we're not getting Heisman Trophy finalist Ezekiel Elliott. That's not what we're getting, and we're okay with that. And I think he understands that as well, and you can see that based on the contract he signed to come here, I think.
And I think he's a little bit more. He's on the field more consistently than Damian Harris was. Harris has kind of been banged up a little bit the last couple of seasons. And it's all right, you're going to get the backup to Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a guy who can pass block really well. Doesn't put the ball on the ground that much, who you can rely on being there from a health perspective. And he's not going to be the highest upside guy, but you just know he's not really going to make any mistakes out there. And when you got a guy as explosive as Ramondre Stevenson as your top back, well, that's all you need from running back 2.
Yeah, do you guys remember Sammy Morris?
Mm-hmm.
Legend.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Who does it? In what world would a team not sign a guy that's going to give you? And these are numbers off the top of my head. Let's say 675 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns. You're going to take that every day of the week. And with the Patriots, a team that they don't have any money locked up into next year, and they're not adding anything to next year. Like this year, they're going to fill up the cap just like they always do, but they don't have a ton of money locked up into next year. And this is just a throw him onto this roster. It's going to make this team better, and it's going to give them extra time to find a guy who's going to be a long-term option because Ramondre. And this isn't something that I think is going to happen, but I think there is the possibility of you're going to take carries away from him. You're going to take touches away from him. And as much as it makes sense from a football and a team standpoint, you don't want that. You don't want to run him into the ground, like you said, Pat. I'm sure he's not going to be thrilled, in week 6 when he's got 2 touchdowns and Zeke has 5. He's going to be like, what the hell, man?
Right.
And that's not that's not the end of the world. It's going to be a thing that they're going to have to get through, but he's coming up on a contract year next year, and the 2 guys you drafted last year haven't shown a ton. Kevin Harris looked fine in the first preseason game. Pierre Strong hasn't shown much of anything other than he has the ability to be an explosive player, but he hasn't shown it. So there are a lot of question marks outside of Ramondre, and Pat knows this. I'm a look-ahead guy usually. I can't stop and smell the flowers, but if you do want to stop and smell the flowers, they've got a good running back room right now. They've got a certified number 1 guy. They've got a really, really good backup. And then they've got a ton of options to fill those 3rd and 4th roles. Like Ty Montgomery's been out for 3 weeks at this point. But when he's on the field, he's productive. And you've got a crack at it with 3 or 4 other guys. So you can't really ask for much more than that. Unless you're the Jets, like 3 number 1s, 4 number 1s. But, they're not.
No, but when you talk about Pierre Strong and his contributions to the team, too, I think the writing was on the wall for this a little bit when we were hearing all about how much special teams Pierre Strong was playing in camp. I feel like usually that happens when they like a guy's talent and they're trying to find a way for him to stick on the roster because they want him to stay long enough to try to develop him. So that tells me they probably like some of what he brings, but also he's an athlete and you need good special teamers. And that's probably like if we're looking at they keep 3 backs, let's say, or 3 backs plus Ty Montgomery and whatever you're going to say he is, it's Strong and Kevin Harris for a spot. They cut Kevin Harris last year. Pierre Strong plays special teams. I kind of feel like Strong has the leg up right now, and you combine the pass blocking of Ezekiel Elliott and the special teams of Pierre Strong, and in theory, you're replacing what Brendan Bolden gave you a couple of years ago, which is a reliable veteran presence in the running back room who can do a lot of things. You're getting that same production you got a couple of years ago. You're just dividing it a little bit differently.
Right. Also, before I continue, Keagan, old friend Dark Blue Gold is asking where your little message board is, and also he pointed out correctly, I believe, that you're in a rocking chair right now.
I am in a rocking chair.
Badass.
I won't stop rocking. I'm not at home right now. I'm settling in somewhere. I'm on a location right now. But I sat in this rocking chair, and I'm not going to stop rocking all day. So I'm sorry for that.
I love it.
The message board is at home. I will take a picture of it and send it out for the world, just so you guys can see our sweet boy. He's still alive.
Yes, I love it. And look, this Zeke thing to me says more about Pierre Strong than it does anything else. I think that people are like, well, why do you let Damian Harris walk? Well, you let Damian Harris walk, number 1, because he had a hard time staying healthy. But number 2, because you drafted 2 running backs last year and you were hoping that one of those guys would step up enough that he could be the RB2 behind Ramondre. And that just simply hasn't been the case, right? And so, you had to go out and make a move, and you sign the kid from the USFL, which everyone mocks. And then you say, all right, well, we're going to sign Zeke too, and we're going to sign him to, a significantly less expensive deal, I should say, than what Dalvin Cook gets with the Jets. And the Dalvin Cook deal was announced and maybe an hour after the Zeke thing. So that they were going on at the same time. That the Angels were talking to each other. And so, Zeke was saying this, Cook was saying that. And they said, well, we're not paying you that, so we're going to give him this,
Now, here's a question for you guys. I believe the last Patriots running back to rush for 1,000 yards in consecutive seasons is still Curtis Martin. I checked. I'm pretty sure that's correct. I looked at that the other day. Does Ramondre Stevenson do it? Does he break that streak? Or is he going to fall short of 1,000-yard mark because you've got Zeke and a couple other backs in the stable.
I think personally, they're going to have a lot more rushing yards as a team than they did last year.
Yeah.
I mean, the offense was a disaster, right? And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but Ramondre broke 1,000. Damian Harris with the injuries was probably in the 600s. I think even if you do get the expected production out, and I could be way wrong on that, that's just me guessing. If you get the expected production out of Zeke, I still think you get over 1,000 yards from Ramondre. And I still think he's going to catch a ton of balls out of the backfield because even with all the weapons, we've watched the Patriots for however long we've watched them. They throw the ball to running backs. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. They did it with Cam. And that offense was a complete total departure from what we've seen otherwise. And they did it with him. So that's a big thing that I don't think they've ever not done. And I expect them to do that. So that's going to the production thing for Ramondre, but I think he breaks 1,000 just because he can break a couple, 60, 70-yard runs on the season and pad his stats a little bit. And he'll have a couple games where they feed him over and over and over again. So,
yeah, I mean, Dark Blue Gold just pointed out Damian Harris had 462, just
That's
about
gross.
500.
That's tough.
But, but again, he was injured and so on and so forth. If Ramondre doesn't get injured, if Ramondre is healthy all year long and plays even only 16 out of the 17 games, I would be shocked if he didn't rush for 1,000 yards. Shocked. Because he, as Keagan said, he's an explosive guy, so he can take off on long runs, but he's also consistent. And you know that the Patriots are going to run to set up the pass. They're going to do that. So you know they want to run. You know they want to establish the run. And so, I feel pretty confident that Ramondre is going to run for 1,000 yards again this year. But again, he could get hurt. Things could happen. But, whether Zeke stays healthy or not, that to me doesn't have any bearing on it. Like, yeah, Zeke will play, but he's not taking that many touches away from Ramondre that he can't get 65 yards. He can't average, 70 yards a game.
I also think, Keagan, you said you think Zeke is going to get some work in the passing game. I almost think it could be the opposite, where he's going to be used so much as a blocker and Ramondre becomes your primary third down back because of this. And they can keep Ramondre's legs fresh to use him more in the passing game because he's so good there. Use Zeke like he's LeGarrette Blount or whatever and keep him out of the passing situations and let Ramondre be kind of a lead back and a third down back at the same time.
Yeah. Ramondre is interesting because I feel like running backs aren't getting paid right now. And we know that running backs aren't getting paid right now. And running backs know that, like, everyone knows running backs aren't getting paid. But I think the difference is, like, a guy like Christian McCaffrey is going to get paid because he's more than just a running back. He's a running back, but he's also like a wide receiver. Ramondre has that skill set. I mean, he's lined up in the slot at times and just smoked fools off the line. And so, like, I think that he has the ability to do that. I wonder if having Zeke will allow the Patriots to kind of open that up a little bit more. Will they come out with two backs with Zeke and Ramondre, and all of a sudden Ramondre's in the slot? Right now, I mean, that's kind of crazy talk, but, like, I don't know. What if they were to do something like that? And, could Ramondre be used in that way? And I think for him, you talk about monetizing and him being in a contract year next year, that's the way he's going to make his money. Because, yeah, okay, anyone can rush for 1,000 yards. Anyone can, especially in a 17-game season. Who cares? We'll just find the next guy. And that's what every team seems to be doing at this point. But where the truly elite backs separate themselves is their ability to separate in the passing game. And that's why Bijan was so coveted this year, because that he can do that. And so if Ramondre can show that he can do that consistently, that's good for his value moving forward. And I think that that's a situation where he would be okay, losing some snaps to Zeke, quote unquote, because now he kind of bumps out to that.
And I do think in the grand scheme of things, and there will be certain situations where they'll bring a guy onto the field for a certain situation. Like, you're going to want Ramondre on the field in a 3rd and 8, right? He's your guy. He's going to give you a dump off. He's going to give you a chance to get the first down, stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, I think the approach they'll take early on is, Ramondre is going to get the first series, Zeke will get the second. Ramondre will get the 3rd series, Zeke will get the 4th. Stuff like that. I don't think they're going to be running these guys on and off the field, because especially with Ramondre, we've seen it over the course of his career. It's only been a couple of years, but he is a rhythm back. If you take him on and off the field, it's not good for him. he doesn't really get into the flow of the game. His rookie year, when he finally started to kind of break his way into the lineup, and they were doing that, he was on and off the field. They tried him on third down, stuff like that. He wasn't the same guy we saw when he was the guy last year. So I don't think they're going to want to take him on and off the field on a play-to-play basis. I think they'd rather do that on a series-to-series basis. And then you'll see, you know, if it's his game, if the first half dictates, you know, he's had a better game than Zeke, he'll get most of the carries in the second half, vice versa. That's just kind of the way I think they're going to do things. They don't care about these guys' value. Fact of the matter is, like, whoever's going to help them win a football game, that's who's going to get on the field.
The value is a later thing, especially because they can't even extend Ramondre at this point. That's next offseason, so that's future. I will say, looking at some of the Zeke tape and how good he is as a pass blocker, one of the things I was thinking of, you go back to last Thursday night in the preseason game, and they had a lot of running backs chipping and tight ends chipping to help block with the tackles. I don't know if any of them looked very good at it. And it's like, not saying Ezekiel Elliott replaces your tight end 3, but if it's a passing situation and you want a 6th blocker in there to help out Mac, I think I'd rather have Zeke than like Matt Sokol.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a second down thing too. Like on third downs, I think in this offense especially, if you're not going to have 2 tight ends on the field, you need a guy who's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. You're not going to be wasting another receiver to be, an extra blocker. But on a second down where you're trying to get 3 or 4 receivers on the field, that's when you leave Zeke in and you say, hey, you're chipping or you're staying in and you're giving Mac a little bit of extra time because they do have 4 capable receivers, maybe 5, who knows, with Pop Douglas, maybe 6 with Booty, whoever.
No, Keegan, they don't have any depth at wide receiver. I'm sorry. They don't have any depth at wide receiver.
I will say this. It's a whole lot of 2s and 3s, which I'm fine with.
Right.
No number 1s, but who cares?
No.
You have Mac Jones as your quarterback anyway, so it doesn't matter if your wide receivers are good.
Yeah.
Building the whole offense out of like number 2 guys.
Build the whole offense out of running backs and tight ends. That's been my strategy since Cam was here, and I'm sticking to it.
See, there you go. And you could put a running back at quarter. Maybe Malik Cunningham could be your quarterback, and you could put a running back at quarterback.
Don't get me started.
So, all right. Well, all right. Question before we move on, because we're going to move on to other things. There's been a lot of discussion. The Jets signed Dalvin Cook. There's been a lot of discussion about their offense is so great and they're going to blah 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 and so on and so forth. Let's just say FanDuel, and I don't believe the lines are up, so I'm just going to make it up. I'm just making it up. Let's just say that FanDuel has them at plus 300 to win the division. Now, let's say plus 500 to win the division. How much money are you putting on that?
Patriots?
No, the Jets.
Oh, the Jets?
I'm never putting any money on the Jets.
Matt, I'm not asking you, sir. I know you're not putting money on the Jets, and neither am I, but I'm asking if Keegan.
So as somebody who doesn't really have any skin in the game, I think the Jets, the variation of how good and bad they can be is absurd. I think whatever this little calf issue that Aaron Rodgers has, that could go south week 1, and they could go like 3-14. Or he could be perfectly healthy. Garrett Wilson's a stud. They've got 3 really good running backs. The offensive line could play above their level, and they could go 14-3.
Yeah.
So as a guy who gives gambling advice for a living, don't bet on that team. That's the dumbest thing you can do in the world. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you're betting on a team who has that big of a variation of whether they could be good or bad, then you're not a responsible gambler, and we don't promote that.
I agree.
But if I did have to put money on it, I'm like $10. Don't try to get rich off this Jets team.
There you go.
Not going to happen.
I love it.
The Jets right now on DraftKings, they're plus 215. Oh, sorry, they're plus 270 for first, 215 for second, 250 for third, and then 350 for fourth.
If you're looking for the FanDuel AFC East odds, Buffalo plus 120, New York plus 250, Miami plus 290, New England plus 800.
Woo-wee, plus 800. My
tough
goodness.
Look for the boys in red and
Hey,
blue.
man, I'm telling you, they're not finishing in last place. They're not.
I agree. I think Miami's going to be very disappointing this year.
Yeah.
Just
so we'll see. All right. Listen, we got to have
I'd say the Jets would be disappointing, but my expectations aren't high. So
the Jets are the Jets. I mean, until the Jets are actually good, I'm never going to believe that the Jets are good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's my approach to it.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. So, all right, listen, we're gonna go to a word from our sponsors. When we come back, we're gonna talk about guys we want to look at for the second preseason game in Green Bay. Some lot of Patriots media members out in Green Bay. Amazing trip last year. If you haven't been to Green Bay, get to Green Bay. It's incredible. We're gonna be talking. We're gonna be doing our trivia question again, and we're also gonna be hitting on a few other little things as well. So stick around, and we will be back. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. 21 plus and present in Massachusetts. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Restrictions apply. Max bonus $50 unless specified otherwise. See terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. We're back. We're getting some. I want to get into some offensive line stuff. Keagan, week 2, right? Now, obviously, for me, you talking about 2 practices against the Packers, and I feel like that's going to be kind of where they're going to primarily use the starters versus the starters. I don't think you'll see a ton of guys play Saturday night. Maybe you will, but I think that that's where you can set up situations, and you can set up, okay, hey, it's 2nd and long at midfield, go. You know, and we can kind of see what happens from there and so on and so forth. So just out of curiosity here, who are you looking for at offensive line? You know, because we all saw what the offensive line looked like last week. It was an absolute travesty. And we know that none of the starters are out and blah, blah, blah and everything else. But that's the major point of concern for everyone. So are there guys that you have your eye on this week that you're really hoping they take a step forward?
I think it's kind of anybody in that right tackle conversation. And we've seen a ton of guys over the last couple of weeks rep there. Riley Reef, McDermott, City, so guys like that where it's really anybody's job to win. And Riley Reef probably, just because he's a veteran, has the inside track on that. But I think out of any of the guys repping at right tackle, somebody's going to have to take a step forward and take hold of that job, because if they don't, it could be gross come week 1. And, you know, the Calvin Anderson thing, no one really knows what's going on with that. So that was kind of the guy I think that they thought was going to be their week 1 starter.
Yep.
He hasn't practiced yet. So even if he comes back tomorrow and he starts playing, I don't think he's going to be their week 1 starter, because he's far behind. He's not even at camp.
Is there any word about what happened?
No, is he on PUP? I believe he's on.
He's
PUP.
on the NFI.
NFI.
Yeah,
so
it's illness. Yeah.
Right. So it could be anything, and
right.
Teams usually don't disclose that. And this isn't me saying that it is a big, you know, illness or whatever. But if you remember, Antonio Garcia, 4 or 5 years ago, went on NFI, and no one knew what happened till after the season.
Yeah. So where he had the blood clot in his lungs, right?
Yeah, stuff like that happens. So you really don't have any idea with him. But going back to the question of who I'm looking for, just anybody to take a step forward at right tackle, and you've got a great team to do that against, because at practices they've got guys who can rush the passer, and you know the Patriots are going to get a good look at what another team's going to kind of try to do to attack those guys.
Yeah. And you go back to last season, the Packers had 4 sacks against New England. That was the second most they had in a game all year. They had 5 against the Rams, 4 against New England, no more than 3 against any other team. So this is a group that Pat struggled with, and to be able to go back against it and kind of evaluate against yourself and what you did last year, I think will be good for the coaches to just know where they are in the process and if they've improved. I was intrigued to see this week in practice that they had Riley Reef at right guard, City So at right tackle, especially because Onwenu's status is still up in the air here, but we have no timeline as of right now. I feel pretty good about the left side of the line if it's Andrews, Strange, and Brown. When they're all healthy and it seems like they're working their way back, that's a pretty good group. But the right side is such a question mark right now. And I kind of thought Riley Reef was going to be the week one starter based on what we saw last Thursday. You know, he doesn't play at all, and Connor McDermott's out there switching between left and right tackle. That tells me Reef's probably ahead on the depth chart, but then to come out and have him at guard with So at tackle, I think is very interesting. And, you know, being able to get in pads and hit people who you aren't familiar with is also going to tell you a lot about how old Reef is, how much he has left in the tank, and how much your young players can learn and how ready they are to go against NFL players.
Yeah. And look, I mean, the Patriots offensive line is a problem, and we understand that, and we know that. And I think that, you know, you look at it and say, all right, what could they have done differently? Well, they drafted Cole Strange in the first round last year. They drafted a guard in the first round last year. Now you could say, oh, well, it's because they traded this guy or got rid of that guy or whatever the case. They drafted a guard in the first round. They drafted 3 offensive linemen this year. So, like, they signed 2 offensive linemen this year. Now, maybe you didn't love the guys that they signed, but who else was out there for them to sign? Did you want them to spend a ton of money on, you know, Jawan Taylor, who, like, I don't know, he's fine, I guess, but I don't love Jawan Taylor. So, like, are they going to go out there and spend a ton of money on one of those guys, or are they going to try to patch it together and kind of see what they have? And I understand passing on a tackle, and it went back to tight end. So, and I guess I'll do it both. I'll do them both at the same time. But tackle and tight end were the 2 positions that everyone was like, you got to hit on a tackle and tight end this year. Well, where are you going to take those guys? Because you want to switch out Jake Andrews to someone else, 100%. I'm totally fine with that. You take a look at who was drafted after Jake Andrews, and you tell me what tight end you would have wanted to draft at 107. Because 0 of those guys are on my list. Not one guy is on my list. And so, you know, Luke Schoonmaker, loved Luke Schoonmaker. He went 58. You would have had to draft him in Keon White's spot. Do you want Keon White or Luke Schoonmaker? Like, come on, man. Like, these are things that, you know, like, we can make those arguments. And listen, we can talk about tackle, and I like DeJuan Jones, and I would have liked maybe him in that situation instead. And so maybe you can swap some of those guys out. But at the end of the day, it's like the guys that you liked, they were gone. Right? They were gone. And so, you know, yeah, sure, they could have done some things differently, but the first 3 picks look like they're going to be really good players. Like, not in 3 years, like now, today. So to me, it's one of those things for me that I just look at and say, like, man, yeah, we can second guess them, but like, where was the move, right? Where was the move that you wanted them to make? And I think, you know, Keagan, you talked about looking forward, right? And we look forward to not just 2023, but 2024. And we look at no tight ends under contract in 2024. We look at, you know what? Trent Brown's not under contract in 2024. Riley Reef and Calvin Anderson aren't under contract. Well, Calvin Anderson signed a 2-year deal, did he not? I think Anderson signed a 2-year deal. So I think Anderson's under contract. Reef isn't. So you have City So.
I thought Reef was a 2-year deal. I could be wrong.
So maybe you're right. So maybe Reef was a 2-year and now, but either way, your depth is very, very limited at those positions going into next year. And so
it was,
you know,
it
if
was
those
1
things
year for Reef.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So your depth is extremely limited at those positions going into next year. And I get that. And that's a valid second guess and a valid concern. But then the question becomes, who did you want them to get? Right? Like, who was out there that they could have gotten? You know, and that's what you have to come back to.
I think there's an easy. Go ahead. I was just quick to the tight end thing. I think there's an easy way to look at the tight ends where they took big swings in a bunch of different ways trying to fix this tight end problem. They drafted 2 guys in the 3rd round, disastrous picks. You know,
yep.
Asiasi couldn't stay healthy. I guess Dalton Keene couldn't stay healthy either, but he's not really an NFL tight end. He's a fullback more than anything, as we're seeing now. You signed Smith and Henry, and as what people like Hunter Henry, for the money that they gave him, he gave them a year of production and then a bunch of swill last year. Jonnu Smith didn't give them anything. So they're taking all these big swings and it's not working out. So it makes sense for them to say, let's take a step back and we're going to go and target a guy on a 1-year deal for much less than what, I mean, he got the franchise tag last year, which is however much it is for a tight end. He
Right.
signs like a relative veteran minimum contract with the Patriots. So they're maximizing value at a position that has not a ton of value. And maybe the Patriots value tight end more than other teams because they use multiple, and it's such a big part of their offense. But why are you going to put all of these assets into these tight ends and not get the return on investment? It doesn't make any sense to continue to try to do that when it hasn't worked for you in the past. Fall back into the Patriot way of thinking of, we're going to get a guy for good value and we're going to turn him into whatever we can and then let him walk and sign a big contract with whoever next year. And I think they'll continue to do that. They're going to draft a guy. There's a guy called Brock Bowers. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's another one of these generational tight ends.
Yeah.
And I still believe a guy like Kyle Pitts, if he had not me throwing the football to him, he'd be a solid football player, but he doesn't. He's got
Maybe
problems.
Desmond Ridder. Maybe Desmond Ridder's the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a fact. Like it's a matter of maximizing value at a position that doesn't have a ton of value in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's also one of those spots. The thing that's tough is that if you get a really good tight end, that's one of the best values you can get out there. Like Travis Kelce produces like a wide receiver 1 for a relatively cheap contract, essentially. But there's like 2-3 guys like that in the league, and then a drop off. And tight end is so tough to evaluate because guys take 2 or 3 years in the league to adjust, and you only got so many draft picks every year, and you got 53 roster spots to fill. You can't. In an ideal world, you're going to sit back there and say, we're just going to take every draft. We're going to take one player at every single position, and then we'll always be fine because we'll take enough throws. But that's not the way it works. So yeah. So
Pat's heard me go on this rant before about tight ends. Guys get to the NFL and they don't know how to play the position because tight ends don't exist in college football. You have big wide receivers.
Yep.
That's just the way it is now. So guys get to the league and they have to learn how to play the position. And like you said, Matt, it takes 2 to 3 years to adjust. And, how do I play leverage against zone defense? These guys don't know how to do that. They outrun small linebackers from Big Ten schools and they get drafted high and then they have to learn how to play football. So that's, like I said earlier, it's just what the position is these days.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a better bet on money to go for veterans because you already know they can play at the NFL level, even if it is more expensive. It's an overpay on a tight end in the NFL is still probably less money than you're paying for like your wide receiver 2. So even if you mess it up, it doesn't cripple you. Like for as bad as the Jonnu Smith deal was, they traded him away, got a pick back, and got some of that money away. And it's like you sign any other big position and whiff on a deal that badly, and it could totally cripple you because the amount of money you're putting into it.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. What's interesting to me is like what you see with these guys. And Justin Woods in the chat actually just said it. Most of your elite tight ends are not drafted high, which is true. Like it's about finding that guy who can transition into the position in the NFL, and that is coaching, and that is scheme, and that sometimes is just simply luck. You just luck into it. Who's the kid from Tennessee that was like pretty good last year, right? How late of a pick was he? He wasn't an early round pick, right? The tight end, the rookie,
I believe.
Yeah. I don't think he was an
like
early
a third round pick.
Yeah, so not like terribly low, but still, it's just like Kelce was a 4th round, I think 3rd or 4th round pick. Kittle was a 5th round pick, so on and so forth. So it's one of those things. So, but nevertheless. So I think I know we got off on a tight end tangent when we were talking about the offensive line, but is it tight end's an extension of the offensive line in some respects? So
Chigo Okonkwo was a 4th round pick.
Thank you, 4th round pick. Yeah. So there you go. Is there any other battles you're looking forward to this week? Right, in training camp. Now you're not in. You said you're on location. Are you in Green Bay right now?
Oh no.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm
He's on a location.
All right. I assume
I'm on
not.
a different location than my home.
Okay. All right.
No, I've got. I'll give you a couple Patriots ones. I actually have a Packers one for the folks at home because the Packers cornerbacks, like that entire group, filthy, ridiculous. Yeah, they're They're legit. But if we're talking, camp battles for the Patriots, I mean, wide receiver, just because if Pop Douglas continues to just be their most productive receiver during camp, they're going to have no choice but to keep him. And they have no choice but to keep Tyquan Thornton and Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster. So those are 4 guys that they've got kind of no choice but to keep. So do you cut Kendrick Bourne and try to keep another cheaper guy? Do you keep Kendrick Bourne and then risk losing on Kayshon Boutte, who has seemed to come along over the past week or so? He didn't do much in the game, but no one did because they had no time to throw the football. So that one's interesting to me just because the dynamic of the fact they have to keep 3 guys. If Pop Douglas keeps doing it, that makes 4. And then there's a real competition for that 5th wide receiver spot with a veteran and a rookie. And that's really interesting to me because I think we all like Kendrick Bourne, and he's the kind of guy that you want on the team, but he's up after this year. And if you cut Kayshon Boutte and he goes and signs somewhere else, now you're losing out on 2 guys when you could have a guy under contract for the next 4 years. So there's a roster construction element to that battle, not so much just who's the better player right this second.
That's a great point. I think it's a great point. And I wonder if Boutte is a guy that ends up on the IR, that gets hurt in week 3 of the preseason and, ends up on the IR. And I wonder, and someone, Matt's football guy says it like, do they carry 6 wideouts? Belichick, I don't think has ever done that, but they could do that and bring 6 wideouts into the into the fold. I wonder if they decide that. But if you really want Bourne and you think he's important, but you also don't want to lose Boutte, then you do it.
Yeah, and they can do the whole carry 6 wide receivers for 10 minutes, then put one on IR. He's out for it's only 6 weeks now, 4 weeks, 8 weeks.
I think 6 weeks is the minimum.
Right. They
I thought it was 4.
It was 4 for COVID, but they might have bumped it to 6. Whatever it is, it's not 8 like it used to be. And it's not the full season. Yeah. So they could do that, sneak a special teamer through waivers, pull him back onto the roster, like a guy like Amir Speed or whoever it might be. They keep cutting special teamers, so maybe this is a whole new team that we don't know about because they keep just cutting these guys loose. I was convinced Jordan Healig was going to be Matthew Slater. They cut him after a week and a half. So
I had a 53-man roster projection go up right after the game or on Friday, and I had DeMarcus Mitchell and Jordan Heilig on it. Yeah. Just kind of I've had them as roster locks on some ways for a while, just thinking, all right, it's going to happen, which I did. You draft Keon White, and then in some ways that makes like DeMarcus Mitchell expendable. Like you're just not going to keep that many bodies at a similar spot, and like. Yeah, you can throw White out there on special teams. Like with a body like his, throw him out there, he'll wreck some guys. Like I'd rather have that than DeMarcus Mitchell.
And Mitchell was weirdly like, I think his biggest contribution, he was on kickoff and kickoff return teams, but his biggest contribution was on the punt team. And I would much rather have a guy like Amir Speed who runs a 4.42 40 out there than DeMarcus Mitchell. And Amir Speed or Isaiah Bolden or whoever those guys are, they're going to give you something on the back end of the defense because we see it every year. We saw it in the playoffs 2 years ago. Those guys get injured. At some point, you're going to need an extra one. We saw it in the freaking Super Bowl in 2014. Somebody has a bad game, and you need extra bodies on the back end. And like you were saying, I'd much rather have a guy like Amir Speed or Isaiah Bolden than DeMarcus Mitchell because they're going to give you value at multiple spots.
Right.
So I think it does make sense. Cut the big bodies, get these skinny guys in here, and let them run around a little bit.
I think I wouldn't have been shocked to see them get cut at the cut down point. I think it was shocking to see them get cut this early in the process because it's like, and then we'll still see what happens. But like Heilig and DeMarcus Mitchell were guys to me where it's like if they're not on the 53, you probably stick them on the practice squad. Like especially Heilig, nobody's really competing with you for Jordan Heilig. If you like him, you can put him wherever you want. The fact that he went this early is like. Maybe he just wasn't as good as they thought he was going to be, and that's it.
And there are also situations where they might know he's not going to make the roster no matter what. It's not worth throwing a practice squad or a special teams guy on the practice squad. That doesn't do anything for you. So you cut him loose, you give him more of a chance to catch on with somebody else. That's maybe a backroom kind of idea of an agent will tell a team, if he's not going to make the roster, cut him, let him go try somewhere else. Don't waste our time. So that happens all the time. And he was a guy he was a high priced UDFA. They gave him a solid chunk of change, so that could have been it as well.
Yeah, it's and that's fascinating to me. I am curious to see what it looks like. I wonder how much the kickoff rules have impacted those things, and I also just wonder too. I mean, you mentioned Speed and Bolden. Speed's a guy that played 500 special team snaps in college, like 500. So to me, he's a guy that you can keep to play special teams. And as you said, he can do other things. Pierre Strong is a guy that plays special teams and can contribute elsewhere. Isaiah Bolden's a guy that plays special teams and can contribute elsewhere. And so that's the stuff for me where it's like you look at it and say, hey, it's not just the fact that this guy can play special teams, but it's that when the offense or the defense is on the field, there's a chance that this guy plays. You can't have Matthew Slater and Brandon Schooler and Cody Davis and, DeMarcus Mitchell and Jordan Healy. Now you're at the 5 guys that only play special teams and don't contribute anywhere else. And forget about will never contribute anywhere else. So that's the hard part where you look at it and say, do these guys make sense? And so I think that we're seeing kind of the revolution of that happen. And the Patriots saw that, and that's why they drafted these 2 guys. I think that's why they drafted these 2 guys late in the 6th round.
We're also forgetting about Chris Board, who they gave a lot of money to, who is a special teamer.
Good point.
And that's
and
he's a guy who's guaranteed to be on this roster for 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And Cody Davis is on the PUP list right now, but if and when he gets healthy, he's another guy who he's going to figure into that. I think Amir Speed is a guy who could really make him expendable, but another guy who has, in theory, he can play defense if you need him to. He's a good special teamer. He's under contract, so it's and especially he's probably just better than High Leg, and it's all right. Well, they saw enough to know that if Davis is healthy, we're keeping Davis over High Leg, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, agreed. There was something someone asked about. Oh, all right. We haven't talked to you, Keagan. We did an instant reaction after the show. We haven't talked to you. Do you have Malik fever?
I saw somebody say the undrafted free agent streak is over.
Yeah.
I disagree. Not because I think Malik Cunningham's going to be the starting quarterback. I don't think there's any way they let him off the roster. Just with how dynamic of a football player he is. And we've heard the stories of Belichick talking to Edelman on draft night saying, I don't know what position you play, but you're a football player. So, come here and we'll figure out what to do with you. I don't think Malik Cunningham's going to be the next great slot receiver in New England. I don't think he's going to be playing DB in week 4.
Right.
I do think he is worth keeping as a 3rd quarterback on the 53-man roster. You get an extra active game day roster spot with him. Mm-hmm. If you keep him active, you get an extra spot, and then you can use him in multiple ways. I think there's a world in which we see him as a package quarterback on the goal line. You have him, Ramondre, and Ezekiel Elliott on the goal line. You're never going to not score a touchdown with those 3. You're going to find a way.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think he's like QB2. I don't think he's QB1. I think he's just a good football player that they're going to want on the team, and they're not going to risk losing. So I do think he makes the initial 53. Whatever happens from there, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I agree. I think he makes the initial 53. It's assuming that he gets enough looks here in the next couple of weeks. That he looked great last Thursday against guys who are not going to be earning NFL paychecks for too much longer here. Let's see him against guys who at least are going to be hanging around at the bottom of rosters and see if he can just look about the same.
Yeah.
But there's value in keeping him in the system through week 1 because you play Jalen Hurts. And that means, hey, in practice, we got a guy who's athletic and can run a bunch of this stuff and can give our defense a look ahead at what we're going to be seeing on opening afternoon there at Gillette Stadium. And I think that's enough to probably keep him in the system. And if he looks as good in the preseason against Green Bay or against Tennessee as he did the last game and against better players, it also might be hard to sneak him through to the practice squad if that's something you wanted to do.
And that's
You've
Yeah.
already lost that. Sorry to cut you off, Pat. You've lost the sneaking him through already, and that's just the throw he made to your boy that Trey Nixon dropped. That's a throw that Mac Jones can't make that throw on the run to his right to float it in over. He's never made it before. I know people like Mac Jones, and I'm not saying that he's a better quarterback because he can make that throw, but talent wise, he has the talent to be something, and we've seen. Malik Willis got drafted. However freaking high he got drafted.
Yeah, third round, right?
There's guys that get drafted off the arm talent and stuff like that alone. Anthony Richardson played 8 games in college, and he got drafted 5th overall. So
and he's going to be starting week 1.
He's starting week 1. So athletically and arm talent and all the cool buzzwords, he's got it. Some bum team's going to pick him up and try to figure it out with him. So you lost that. That's gone.
No, I agree with you. And that's a throw that I would say maybe not the majority of the league, but a good portion of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL can't make that throw. On the run, dime like that,
right.
In traffic. It's a tough throw. Now, again, then the question becomes, well, for him to actually be good, he's going to have to be able to be in the pocket and read defense. And the question is, can he do that? And we don't know. Right. I mean, I think the Patriots are really not thinking that he can because they weren't even going to try him out at quarterback until they put him in there, right at the end of that game. So it's one of those things. And the chat's blowing up about Trey Nixon, man. The dream is over. The dream is over. I love Trey Nixon so much. He's I love him. I might be the only person in the world outside of Trey Nixon that has a signed autographed rookie card by Trey Nixon. And not only do I have one, I didn't pull it out of a pack. I purchased it online and got it delivered to my house because I love Trey Nixon. And it just is not going to work out, unfortunately. And it's sad. It's sad and it's hard to let go, but I'm going to have to after that performance on Thursday night.
So, now, if this is also a huge opportunity for Malik Cunningham this week with joint practices because you can let him work in a practice environment against the full-speed NFL defense and see how he looks. Because if you throw him out there and he's trying to replicate the great throw he made, and every time he tries it, he can't make it happen again, or he's throwing picks left and right, or his speed can't compete with NFL ones, then okay, yeah, this isn't. It was a nice flash in the pan, but this isn't the direction we want to go. And if he looks good, you can say, yeah, he's quarterback 4. We're going to rest him the rest of the preseason. That way NFL teams don't know what it is that you have if he actually does seem like a legit quarterback too.
I do think with him, the tough part is, and he's got the size issue. He's 6 foot. He doesn't have the size of an NFL quarterback. He played in an offense that didn't really show what you need to see out of a guy that you're going to draft high to be an NFL quarterback. But also, you can't replicate the things he does in a practice environment because he's not being hit in a practice environment. So there is no, let me break a play down, escape, and cut half the field off, and then make an easy throw. I think the one-for-one example is Lamar Jackson, not because he is that player, but he comes from the same program. Mm-hmm. And everybody thought Lamar Jackson doesn't know how to read a defense. You can't just be a running back. You can't be a good athlete and play. But we saw Lamar Jackson can break a play down to its very base level and make all of those throws and make them look routine. And that's something that an athletic quarterback can do, but you don't know until you see it in a game environment. And that, like we were saying, that's why you saw it week 1 of the preseason. And I want to reiterate, he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to win the MVP. But same play style in terms of you don't know what you have until you see it on the field. So they're going to have to see it a couple more times if they really, really want to find out whether or not he's going to continue to play quarterback or if they're going to try him out somewhere else.
Yeah.
He had he forced as many missed tackles as the Patriots running backs did Thursday night.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he was electric. But again, he was playing against, guys that aren't going to play in the league. So that's the counter, as you say, well, yeah, fine, but he was playing against bums, right? And, so let's see what happens if you throw him in. And you mentioned, I mean, the corners, the secondary in Green Bay is really good. and they're really fast, and they're like one of the best in the entire league. And so if when we saw him, what Cadlick was saying that he got significant snaps at quarterback, right? He took some snaps with the first unit. Do they put him out there against the first unit in Green Bay and say, okay, figure it out, kid. Hey, we got a few plays for you. We got a little package and go figure it out, And so I think that that's one of the things where you can look at that and say, okay, well, what do we have? Let's just evaluate it. We don't know, right? I mean, it's in a practice and they're not hitting and everything like that, but still, let's just see what happens, and you can kind of see where that goes. And so I don't know for sure if he can do it, but I do agree, like, you can't let him walk, because what if he actually is that guy? And then you let him walk for nothing. You can't do that. So, Keagan, we wanted to. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
We were talking matchups we want to look at this week, and there was one I was surprised we hadn't mentioned yet, and that's a little Christian on Christian action. Gonzalez against Watson. Christian Watson's one of the kind of the breakout candidates for next year, and everybody's super hyped on what he can do in year 2. And I think he's the type of receiver in some ways that you're drafting Christian Gonzalez to stop, like with his deep speed and ability to line up in a lot of different places. And he can be physical. He can be very good after the catch. I think this is a really good test for Christian Gonzalez, and he might be the best receiver that Gonzalez is going to see here in the preseason, depending on how much DeAndre Hopkins action that we see next week.
DeAndre Hopkins doesn't practice, sir. He will not be out there.
Yeah. But yeah, this is in some ways the first real test. I don't think Nico Collins counts as the first real test of Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, they have a lot of like big bodied guys too. So I think that goes to your point of a bigger receiver, faster guy. Romeo Doubs, and Pat knows this. I was dead wrong about Romeo Doubs. He's like a solid NFL receiver. I think he's going to be I thought he was going to be the worst player on the planet. He looked so clunky and gross at Nevada. And then he just turned out to be just like a fluid, solid playmaker. But, him, Christian Watson, 2 bigger guys. They've got a couple other younger guys who, at the very least, are bigger bodied guys. And that's what you drafted Christian Gonzalez to stop, because you have a bunch of 5'7" through 5'10" corners.
Right.
So I'm also interested in seeing that matchup. I think we're going to get a lot of red zone touchdowns from the Packers, and people are going to kind of like lose their minds a little bit, but that's just the way life works in the NFL. If you're working a red zone period, a lot of touchdowns, and it makes it hard on the defense, but when you're throwing the ball, they're going to score. So
right.
I would warn people, don't get caught up in the numbers, but watching the way that he's able to shut down guys like these and the way he's able to be physical with them, I think that's going to be big for his development, because we saw it was a wake-up call, first play of the game last week. Like, okay, this is what the NFL is like. And he adjusted quickly, and he played well. So seeing that again throughout practice and then into a game situation is going to be big for him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, someone was asking in the chat, what is it going to look like? Is Gonzalez going to be, CB1? I think he is CB1. I think Gonzalez is cornerback 1. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. And I think, Jack Jones, this whole Jack Jones court case got pushed back about a month, I believe. And, I think it probably ends the plea deal. And he sees no jail time, probably doesn't get suspended by the league, maybe gets suspended for a game or 2. But I think he's your cornerback 2. And then you see John Jones and Marcus Jones slide into the slot. I think that's how it's going to play out. John Jones, I think, has shown the ability last year to play outside a bit as well. But I think Jack Jones is so much better outside than he is inside. And John Jones can give you a little bit of both. So, like, you play when Jack Jones and John Jones are both on the field. This is so confusing because they're all freaking Jones. When Jack and John are both on the field, Jack's outside, John's inside. But then if Jack comes off, well, now John can bump outside and Marcus can go inside, right? So I think that's how you can play those 3, where you can kind of bump, John Jones inside and outside, and Marcus Jones can play outside a bit as well. But we saw last year, T. Higgins is T. Higgins, but we saw last year that he has limitations because he's small, right? And he's not afraid to hit people, and the tackling isn't an issue. It's just the fact that he isn't big, right? And so you can throw over the top of him where, John Jones isn't much bigger, but he's, 3-4 inches taller. It makes a big difference, like, I mean, not 4, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but like he's 3 inches taller, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit,
Yeah. Well, you look at the schedule too, and I think you're going to see a variety of corners out there and different stuff out there over the first month or so, because you're seeing different teams. Like when you play the Eagles, it's probably going to be a lot of 2 receiver stuff. And if that's the case, then it's probably going to be, it's crazy to say, Christian Gonzalez on A.J. Brown, week 1, welcome to the NFL rookie. And the other side, Jonathan Jones with Devontae Smith. That's probably how you do it. And you definitely don't want
all safeties. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah. And then
safeties.
Well, like I don't want Jack Jones on A.J. Brown because they're just going to run his way every single time, and A.J. Brown's going to toss him around. But then you go week 2, and it's Miami, and you can put Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones and Jack Jones. Like you got speed receivers, and then we'll see what the Jets end up looking like and how they want to do things. So you get 3 very different offenses in the first 3 weeks of the season, and how they rotate the corners over the next 2 months really is going to be an interesting story to watch as how these guys develop.
Yeah, agreed. Man, my favorite thing about the last week is how, you all remember how pissed I was last year about the whole Zappy thing and Mac, and during the Bears game. But like, it's just so funny how all of Pat's Nation, not the podcast, but the actual people, have just taken Bailey Zappi and thrown him in the trash. And now Malik Cunningham is a new shiny toy. And they're like, Zappi sucks. Trade him and, bench Mac and put Malik Cunningham. I'm like, all right, relax. What you like? It's just like, calm down, So
I love our overreactions.
Fandom is a sickness. And I think people need to go outside a little more often than they do. Because,
touch some
relax.
grass.
You know what I mean? And I tweeted this in every viewpoint which you could attack the whole Mac Jones getting booed at Gillette Stadium thing. Everybody needs to calm down. It was dumb to boo him. It's dumb to get mad that the quarterback got booed. It's dumb to think Bailey Zappi should be a starting quarterback. It's dumb to think he's not worth being on the roster. Just go outside, touch some grass.
I know.
Middle grounds do exist.
I will say I was proven right when I said you're all idiots for wanting Zappi to be a starting quarterback. And they're like, Zappi's so much better. And I'm like, all right, yeah, sure he is. He's freaking terrible. He's not terrible.
Who I want
Let's not
to
get
be
wrong. He's not terrible.
the starting quarterback? A competent NFL player. One of these days it'll happen.
Hopefully Mac can actually be.
It's happening.
We'll see.
I'm sure.
This is it. This is the year. Like if Mac isn't that guy, then it's like, all right, see you later. So we'll see.
And we're tanking for Caleb Williams.
That's right, baby. Number 1 overall pick.
Something I can get behind.
Can we find a way to get Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Brock Bowers all at the same time? Is that doable?
Yeah, I think if you get the number 1 overall pick, right, and then you trade Mac Jones for the number 5 overall pick. No, just
you would have to trade your entire roster to the Arizona Cardinals for their 2 first-round picks.
You probably would.
Just tell them, hey, we got Tyquan Thornton. He's fast. You like that number 2 overall pick for him.
But it's interesting when you look at someone had tweeted out, because Trey Lance is getting crapped on all over the place, and someone had tweeted out, what if the top 3 quarterbacks had gone 1, 2, 3, right? What if Lawrence goes 1, Fields goes 2, and Mac goes 3? What happens if that? So like the Patriots are sitting at 15. Do they trade up for Micah Parsons? Like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like do they stay pat and just like it's so interesting to think about like what happens in that situation if that doesn't happen. And San Fran, by the way, is still good. How was San Fran traded all those picks to get Trey Lance, who stinks, and they're still good? It's not fair.
John Lynch is so cool.
Yeah.
He didn't give a fuck. He's done stuff. It's so cool.
Fields, by the way, someone said Fields is not the second best quarterback in that draft. Fields was far and away the second. I mean, it's not even close.
As the prospect, yeah.
It's not
even as a prospect right
Mac
now.
is not better than Fields. Come on. No. Mac Jones is not better than Justin Fields. I'm sorry. It's just not the case.
I don't know what the Justin Fields broke like 9 rushing quarterback record last year.
Yeah.
Like all the
how does he
Lamar
throw the
Jackson
ball?
Broke. He broke those, and then he also threw the ball and won them multiple games down the stretch.
Fields was like one of the worst qualified passers in the NFL.
Yeah. I was so mad when the Bears traded up. I was so mad. We were live.
Yeah.
You can go look up the video. I was so mad when that.
You saw me melt in my chair.
Your soul left your body. You were very upset. Yeah.
I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm broken. I was broken.
I was on the Fields train that, and that's who I wanted them to draft, but I'm still not convinced with him as an NFL starter. I'm not.
Fields is going to make the Pro Bowl this year, which is going to be very funny for me.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll finally match Mac Jones in Pro Bowl appearances.
Oh God.
I could have made a Pro Bowl that year.
Who did he knock off? Who was the guy in front of him that left? It was like
the guy. You mean the five?
No. It was the one like
it
was like four guys, but then the last guy was like it wasn't Derek Carr. It was someone like
Andy
worse
Dalton.
than Derek Carr. I think it was Andy Dalton. Like it was Andy Dalton that got hurt and then he went in. And you're like, dude, you were behind Andy Dalton.
Funny.
That's not good.
It was funny.
So
no, I do say the Trey Lance stuff. Between high school, college, and the NFL, he has less passes attempted than like Geno Smith had all of last season. This dude has like barely thrown a football, which is like, I don't know. It's if we run it back and the Pats are there at 15 and Trey Lance is there, I think things probably go better for him if he comes to New England and like either starts right away or plays half a season as a rookie than they have in San Fran. If he just plays more in New England, I think he's better.
Maybe.
I don't know if he'd be good. But it would
he's also not healthy. I don't know. I don't even want to discuss.
The dude's playing football. I'm not surprised he isn't good.
Thank God they didn't draft Trey Lance. That's all I can say. Thank you, San Fran, for moving all the way up and drafting him. Appreciate that. So, all right. Do we have anything else? Oh, the kickers. That's what I want. That's what we want to talk about really quick before we leave. Kickers, because special teams podcast. Come on, bro. Old Man Mob, I believe it was Old Man Mob, asked if that New England could possibly trade Nick Folk. The Dallas Cowboys are in need of a kicker. They signed some USFL guy who's like 29 years old and has never played in the NFL before. They had a guy competing with him. They cut him this week. So, maybe Dallas is in the market for Nick Folk to come home to Dallas. Maybe there are other teams. I just don't see them trading a kicker. I just feel like Nick Folk probably gets cut and doesn't get signed by anyone and then ends up at the practice squad. Similar to what happened with Quinn Nordine when he was a rookie, but I think that unlike Quinn Nordine, Chad Ryland can actually stay on the team.
To trade a kicker in training camp, you need multiple teams who need a kicker, and I don't know if there are, because the Cowboys will just say, okay, you're going to cut one of them. We'll just sign whoever you cut.
Right.
This
you're
is my
keep
thing.
Two.
Right.
But would they? We've seen the Pats do weird stuff, and
they're not going to keep two kickers. It makes absolutely no sense. You
it's
put
not
all
more
the
than
capital. You put so much capital into that punter and kicker. There's no world in which neither one makes the team.
Yeah.
Or which they both make the team and you keep Nick Folk and waste a roster spot.
We've seen them do weird stuff with the kicker spot before, and I only mention it because they might see this as a situation where Chad Ryland does kickoffs and long field goals and Folk does everything 40 yards and in or 35 yards and in or whatever.
That'd be wild.
Bill Belichick does weird stuff. And the other thing is, depending on, what situations are elsewhere, I would be shocked if they try to stick Nick Folk on the practice squad and just keep him in the building in case things go wrong with Ryland or they want to promote him on a game day.
I think that's much more likely than keeping him on that.
Yeah. And if that's their plan, then the Cowboys might need to come in and say, hey, we'll send a seventh for Nick Folk just so we don't have to go through a hassle and we can get him in the building now.
But there's also the practice squad. You can sign anybody off any practice squad, so you're not really.
That's so they can get him in the building now and get him working. If that's what they're looking to do, instead of waiting until week one.
Kicker, you don't need to know anything. Just kick the freaking football. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to get a guy in a building. Just sign him and he'll kick the. We've seen guys sign on Sunday morning and kick that day. Like it's.
Right.
Oh yeah, but you want to build the repertoire with the holder and everything.
But I also think too. I think it depends on how Dallas feels about the kid that they have. Right? Do they trust that kid is going to be good, or do they not? Right? Do they think, all right, well, let's see if we bring someone else in to compete against them. But again, why are you trading a draft pick for a kicker? Like that's 47 years old and can't hit from 45. Like, what are we doing? Just sign some bum off the street and have him compete with that guy. It's just like I'd be surprised if they traded Nick Folk. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the practice squad because I think if they cut him, no one's really going to sign him. I mean, I don't know, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. So I think it will work out for the Patriots. They'll keep Nick Folk on the practice squad just in case he's around. He can work through stuff, with Ryland and kind of go from there. I think that's probably where you're going to go from here, because you traded up in the 4th round for Chad Ryland. Like, you're keeping Chad Ryland. That's happening. So, like,
he's on the roster.
Yeah. Right. So, and there are other guys, Trey Flowers, people mentioned, like, I don't know if Trey Flowers is going to make the roster or not, but there's enough guys on the team that you're like, there's too many guys that I can't cut. And I'm going to keep Nick Folk. Like, no way. So, sorry, Matt, but no, not happening. So,
Brian Hines brought it up earlier in a Pat's article. That's why I mentioned it.
All right, fine. Blame Brian Hines. It's okay.
I'll go yell at him too.
All right. Okay. So let's we got this week in sports history, and then we got our trivia question.
I was promised trivia. I'd like to do it.
Oh yeah. Oh, we're doing.
You don't get to do it, Keagan. We're offering it up to the chat.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, you know what though? I think we can make an exception. This is a tough question.
All right.
We can make an exception.
All right. If Keagan can get it before anybody in the chat does.
Well, of course. If someone in the chat gets it, Keagan plays by the same rules everyone else plays by. Hasn't seen the question. I want to make it known to everyone he hasn't seen the question.
And we could ask him last week's question too if he hasn't.
Well, we got to answer that question anyway, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Before we get this though.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This week in sports history.
All right, so there's multiple. I'm gonna go first though, and mine is from 1965. It's actually tomorrow, August 16th, which is my sister-in-law's birthday. Shout out my sister-in-law. 1965, the AFL's 9th franchise is officially awarded to Joe Robbie and Danny Thomas. The Miami Dolphins start to play in the AFL's Eastern Division in 1966.
Is that why it was called like Joe Robbie Stadium or whatever?
That is why it was called Joe Robbie Stadium. You got it.
I didn't know who he was until now. So
yep.
I didn't know why that name existed.
Well, there you go. That's why. All right, what do you got?
Mine on this day, August 15th, 1993. So we're going back 30 years. Nolan Ryan recorded his 324th and final out against Cleveland.
30 years ago. That's scary.
He was like 48 at the time too.
Oh, sorry. It says final out. Final victory,
final win.
Final out.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the dark blue gold on August 15th, 1959. Green Bay Packers took the field for the first time under new head coach Vince Lombardi, losing to the Bears in a preseason game at Milwaukee County Stadium.
Milwaukee County.
It's a good one.
Speaking of Milwaukee County Stadium.
That week, Hank Aaron hit a home run at Milwaukee County
Probably.
Stadium.
Yeah. Most likely, yeah.
Yeah. What do you call the new stadium there? The Brewers have had. Apparently, the Brewers are looking at moving.
American Family Field or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, I went there last year. The stadium is awesome, and they're demanding a new one, or they want to move, which I don't get because it's a beautiful, beautiful park.
It'll always be Miller Park to me.
I mean, come on, let's get serious.
It's got great sausages there. The bratwurst's fantastic.
Of course, you're in Milwaukee.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on now.
They live up to the hype.
Let's go to trivia here, Matt. Why don't you read last week's trivia question before we give the answer? We'll let Keagan try to answer it, and then we'll go from there. We'll see what he's got.
Yeah. So this was a themed question, Keagan. Since they were playing the Texans, which Patriot scored the franchise's first ever touchdown against the Houston Texans? As the guy who went into the end zone with the ball.
It would have been 03-04, around that time. Super Bowl teams. I don't think Troy Brown. That doesn't feel right. I'm going to lock in David Gibbons. It just feels right.
Great guess. Incorrect. Unfortunately, the correct answer was Bethel Johnson.
Of course it was
Bethel right there.
Was it a return?
No, it was a receiving touchdown, the rare one for him. But
Crazy.
shout out, it was my dad got that one right in the chat. I'm pretty sure he got that in as the last thing in the live chat before we ended the show.
It was the last thing. Well, he wrote Johnson, and I was like, remember, we have to be specific first and last name. I didn't mention him, but then he was like Bethel Johnson. And I was like, dude, he got it. Can't believe it.
Legend, Bethel.
It was great. So, all right, here's this week's question. And again, just a reminder, the first person to get it is going to be entered into a contest, and you're going to win something, we're going to pull a name out of the hat of the people that won it. Halfway through the year, you're going to win something from the pro shop. End of the year, you're also going to win something from the pro shop as well. Obviously, the new contestants. So here's this week's question. Before Marte Mapu was drafted by the New England Patriots this year, please name the last Sacramento State alumni to play for the Patriots in the 21st century.
Wow.
Woo, that's
going to have the chat. Yeah. And we'll throw out here, if nobody gets it in the live chat, you can comment on YouTube or whatever after the fact.
Yes. YouTube, Twitch, anything like that.
If nobody's gotten it, tweet it, Pat or myself.
Yes, do that too.
You have it.
I feel like I was there day one of training camp, and Adrian Phillips went on like a 10-minute soliloquy about how awesome Marte Mapu was. And I want to say he was like, yeah, Sacramento State, they put out like 2 guys. And he might have said whoever used, and they're too much on my brain. But
let me tell you something. If Adrian Phillips called out the dude who played for the Patriots and won a few championships, I would be extremely impressed with Adrian Phillips. So just put it to
my mind immediately went to like an offensive lineman. Is that?
Well,
I mean, we're not giving any hints.
We can't give. There's no hints here.
Hints? Ah, damn.
Nope. Yeah.
Can you text me the answer? I can look it up, but
yeah, I mean, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I will say, Pat. I actually totally forgot what I was. Oh, I know. Bill makes them memorize all kinds of random stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted him and Bill gave them this piece of trivia in a meeting and made them all know it. So
I suppose that's a good point. That is a good point. No one's gotten it just yet in the chat. So
no, you might be waiting a while.
Well, all right, listen, should we give, maybe we'll give, all right, we're going to give one.
Keagan, have you made a guess yet?
No, but I found it, so I'm not going to make it yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna give one hint because it's a hard question. Okay. Keagan asked a great question. He said, "Was it an offensive lineman?" And my answer to Keagan would have been kind of an offensive lineman. Yeah, was never an eligible receiver. We'll put it to you that way.
Yeah. There's a very famous video of this person.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Very famous video.
That was the hint I gave Matt, and he still didn't get it. So, but while the chat converses, Keagan, this has been a blast, man. I miss having you on the show. Love seeing your face. It's great to have you on again, sir. And so before you go, let everyone know where they can see you and read you and hear you and find you and everything else.
NESN.com. I kind of write my stuff. I don't do a lot of Patriots stuff. We've got 2 Patriots guys over there, Zach Cox, Dakota Randall. They do a great job. So I'm stuck talking about my beloved Red Sox and Bruins and Celtics. So if you're looking for kind of middle of the road takes about all 4 Boston sports teams, I'm your guy. At Keagan Steifel on X, formerly known as Twitter, as we have to write it now. Shout out to AP style. But NESN.com, Keagan Steifel. You can just Google my name now and all my stuff pops up, which is nice.
Love it.
So, right in the middle of the screen there.
Love it. Big on Google. Love that. Are you still followed by Ariana Grande on X?
Unfortunately, she deleted her X account.
Oh,
no. But I have the screenshots forever.
Love it. There you go. Well, you know what? She deleted it. That's what happened. She said, I don't want to unfollow Keagan. So instead, I'm going to delete my whole damn account.
I missed my opportunity to slide in the DMs, which is really the upsetting part of the
Hey, really, dude, when she broke up with Pete, you should just slid in and be like, hey, sorry to see what happened. And you know what I mean?
Deleted it because the Pete stands were being weird. So
yeah, that's why. So maybe before the Pete thing. Yeah.
I should have tried to cuck Pete.
Years ago. It should have happened years ago. If we're being honest, it should have happened years ago.
17-year-old Keagan should have been all in on Ariana Grande. Unfortunate.
God, dude. Imagine Ariana gets canceled because she's talking to 17-year-old Keagan Steifel.
She might have been. She's not that much older than me.
That's true. That's a good point. Oh, goodness. Well, anyways,
she would have been 23. That's tough.
Yeah, that's not a great look. No. So, but all right, we've gone off the rails. This has been a lot of fun, Keagan. We love having you on the show, man. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having you back. Matt's got something to add, though.
Well, we're off the rails. One last note. I believe it was Keishon Boutte who confirmed what we were kind of thinking, Pat, this week. Yeah. The coaches or Bill picks the jersey numbers for everybody, which I think explains why nobody got the jerseys we thought they were going to get. So I think we're going to see a lot of switching for week 1.
Yeah, he did the same thing last year.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, Christian Gonzalez in 19 is blasphemy. So, that's terrible.
Maybe
so,
I could get used to it, but I'd like to see him in 0.
I think there's a chance that there's no zeros. I think Bill might be out on the number 0. So
I could see that.
We'll see.
It would not shock me.
It's certainly possible. Yeah, certainly possible. But then again, you never know. He might just say whatever the hell you want. I don't care. I don't know.
Also feels like a Bill. So.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. So all right. Well, thank you, Keagan. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you to the chat. Blowing up all night as usual. We appreciate you guys. We may not repeat everything you say, but we see everything you say. And I love the chats. And I love how, like, I say this all the time, but I love how people are having conversations in the chat while we're having conversations on the thing. It's great. So, So anyways, so thank you very much. We appreciate everyone. And we'll be back Saturday night after preseason game 2 for our instant reaction. Take care, guys.